Yesterday, Sayadaw explained the 3 kinds of Viriya, and Sayadaw explained that among these 3 kinds of Viriya, in order to drive out the laziness, one should step up one's effort, and one should increase the effort stage by stage until one finally reaches one's goal. By boosting effort, the Viriya effort will become amazingly strong. And when the object arises, effort should be exerted so that the noting will be concurrent with the object. When the practice gains momentum, Sati, mindfulness, will stick onto the object. The mind will not run elsewhere. Avikepalakano Samadhi, concentration, has the characteristic of not distracting, not scattering. Sticking of the mind onto the object is due to Sati, mindfulness. The mind falling calm and collected on the object is due to Samadhi, concentration. Samadhi, concentration, keeps the mind unified, collected onto the object. It unifies the mental factors, and it keeps the mind unified and collected onto the object. So it is the function of Samadhi. Function of Samadhi is unifying the mind, unifying the mental state, calm, collected on the object. With Samadhi, concentration, the mind will not be distracted or scattered, but it will be collected and unified. So when Samadhi, concentration is strong, at that moment, the mind will not be agitated by raga, there will not be lust, and there will not be any other defilement arising at the moment concentration is present. Having concentration, the mind will not be agitated by raga, dosa, or moha, and thus the mind will be calm and steady. So Samadhi, concentration, manifests as calm and steady. So in this way, by being mindful, when the mind is calm and collected, the characteristic, function, and manifestation will be obvious to the yogi who practices properly, and yogi understands what is Samadhi and what is its characteristic, function, and manifestation. And also, yogi understands Sati, mindfulness. Apilapana lakkhana, Sati has the characteristic of not wobbling, not floating on the surface. When object arises, noting the object with Viriya, effort, Sati, mindfulness, sinks into the object. The noting mind sticks onto the object. So it is not floating on the surface like a cork on the surface of the water, but it will sink and it will stick onto the object. So with Sati, mindfulness, the mind sinks into the object. It will not be floating on the surface. When the object arises, mindfulness sinks into the object. Sinking into the object, it is the function of Sati, mindfulness. When Sati, mindfulness, is present, the object will be in view. One will not lose sight of the object. Having mindfulness, the object will always be in view. Yogi will not lose sight of the object. So, noting the object with Viriya, effort, the noting will not be superficial. The noting mind will sink into the object. The mind will fall calm and collected on the object, and yogi will not lose sight of the object, and yogi will not forget to note the object. So in this way, whatever object arises, yogi will not miss it. Yogi will not fail to be mindful. Yogi will not lose sight of the object. Not losing sight of the object, it is the function of Sati, mindfulness. Visaya vimukha bhava pachupatthana, meaning that Sati, mindfulness, has the manifestation of coming face to face or direct with the object. And another manifestation is arakha pachupatthana. Sati has the manifestation of guarding, protecting the mind. In the first one of the manifestation, Visaya vimukha bhava pachupatthana. Visaya means the object arising at the present moment. There are 4 fields of objects to be noticed. Among the 4 fields of objects to be noticed, there is the presently arising object. When the presently arising object arises, there should be a vimukha. The noting mind should be face to face or direct with the object. So the noting mind should be direct with the object. So as soon as the object arises, the noting mind should be face to face and direct with the object. So Sati, mindfulness, keeps the mind face to face, direct with the object of meditation. Having Sati, mindfulness, kilesa, defilement, cannot enter. Sati, mindfulness, protects the mind away from the defilement. Having Sati, mindfulness, the defilement will be away. Defilement cannot enter the mind. In this way, Sati, mindfulness, protects the mind away from the defilement. Having Sati, the mind will be safe and secure. There will be goti, security. Noting the object properly, yogi will understand Sati, mindfulness, with its characteristic function and manifestation. Because of Viriya, effort, Sati and Samadhi, mindfulness and concentration arise. In the practice, yogi should be noting with courageous effort without withdrawing. Even though yogi may be facing difficulties, yogi should practice with the clenched teeth. not giving up the practice. Viriya, effort, is also called as Ussahana. U means when difficulties arise, there should be sahana. One should practice with clenched teeth, with endurance, courageously. So in this way, during the practice, when unpleasant sensations such as pain and ache arise, or when laziness arises, there will be a situation where the yogi may want to withdraw. But instead, even if the yogi faces difficulties such as pain and ache or laziness, having effort, yogi will not withdraw from the practice. So yogi should boost up the effort so as to overcome the difficulty. Having effort, the mind will not be flinching away. The mind will not be constricted. The example is given here. When a house is very old, then one needs to prop up the house with pillars so that the house will not collapse. In the same way, when coming across difficulties, one should prop up one's mind with effort so that one will not withdraw from the practice. So in order not to give up, one should prop up one's mind with effort. One should have strong determination that I will practice so as to overcome the difficulty. So in this way, Viriya has the manifestation of not withdrawing from the practice. When the yogi exerts effort in the practice, yogi will also understand Viriya, effort, with its characteristic, function, and manifestation. Having effort in the practice, Sati, mindfulness, and Samadhi, concentration, will automatically develop. In this way, yogi will be fulfilling the three factors: Viriya, Sati, and Samadhi, effort, mindfulness, and concentration. Fulfilling Viriya, Sati, and Samadhi, effort, mindfulness, and concentration, one will be developing wholesomeness and one will be removing unwholesomeness. Having Viriya, Sati, and Samadhi, effort, mindfulness, and concentration, one can prevent unwholesomeness from arising, one can remove unwholesomeness, and one can also develop wholesomeness, and one is gaining these benefits every single second. Having Viriya, Sati, and Samadhi, effort, mindfulness, and concentration, even if one has not developed knowledge yet, if the mind falls onto form or shape of the object, the mind will be pure, away from defilement. In the beginning of the practice, the mind falls on sandhana paññati, form or shape concept, or akara paññati, manner concept. For example, when noting rising and falling of the abdomen, when the mind falls on the rising and falling, in the beginning of the practice, At times, the noting mind may fall on the form or shape of the abdomen, which is Anapana, form or shape concept. At times, the noting mind may fall on the mode or manner of rising or falling, which is Akarapanyati, manner concept. So in the beginning, even if the noting mind falls on concepts such as Sandanapanyati, form or shape concept, or Akarapanyati, manner concept, it is quite beneficial. When the noting mind falls on form or shape of the abdomen, or mode or manner of movement, there will be Samadhi, concentration. The mind will be calm and collected, and thus the mind is pure, away from defilement. When the practice gains momentum, the noting mind will fall beyond form or shape or manner, that the noting mind will fall on nature, such as stiffness, tension, movement. When the noting mind falls on stiffness, yogi discerns stiffness. When the noting mind falls on tension, yogi discerns tension. And when the noting mind falls on movement, yogi discerns movement. So in this way, when the noting mind falls on rising and falling of the abdomen, yogi will at least know Vayo Dhatu, the wind element, which manifests as stiffness, tension, movement, and yogi discern correctly. In order to discern correctly, yogi should practice with effort. Yogi should note the object with effort, and yogi should aim one's noting mind onto the object. Aiming, directing the noting mind onto the object is Vitakka, and it is also called Samma Sankappa, right application. Aiming, directing the noting mind onto the object, the noting mind will be direct or face to face with the object, and yogi comes to discern the nama-rupa, mentality and materiality. When the noting mind falls on materiality, yogi comes to know the nature such as stiffness, tension, movement, or some other nature. And yogi also will discern nama-rupa, mentality and materiality by noting the object. When one discerns distinctly between nama and rupa, mind and matter, panya, knowledge, develops. Panya means knowing distinctly, clearly, not in a confused way, but in a clear-cut manner. So in this way, discerning clearly, distinctly, Samadhi, right knowledge, also arises. So by noting the presently arising object, discerning correctly, there will be Samma Sankappa, right application, as well as Samadhi, right knowledge. So yogi should not be thinking how these factors of Samma Sankappa, Samadhi will arise, but by noting the object, by developing Viriya, Sati and Samadhi, effort, mindfulness and concentration, these factors of the path will automatically be developed, and the noting mind will be concurrent with the object. To explain it in terms of jhana, by developing wholesome mind, bhavana citta, developed mind, one is removing hindrances. When rising of the abdomen arises, one should aim one's noting mind onto the rising of the abdomen so that the noting mind will be direct or face to face with the object. So in this way, one should aim and direct one's noting mind, and the noting mind should rub against the object. If the mind is let go free, it will not be direct or face to face with the object. The mind will be straight. In order to direct the noting mind on the rising and falling of the abdomen, every time it rises, every time it falls, in order that the noting mind should be concurrent with the object, one should aim and direct the noting mind onto the object. Viveceva kamehi, viveca akusalasamehi. Meaning that when the noting mind is directly aimed onto the object, the mind will be free from the sensual object as well as the desire on the sensual object. As much one notes the object with aim and effort, as much the noting mind is effective, the mind is being free from the sensual object as well as the desire on the sensual object. Vivekacha means the mind is being free from these defilements. The mind is being free from these wrongful thoughts. When the noting mind is direct or face to face with the object, when the noting is effective, there will not be any of the hindrances. As long as the noting mind is concurrent with the object, the mind will be free from nirvana hindrances. As the practice gains momentum, the mind becomes free from these nirvana hindrances, and one will gain happiness by being free from these nirvana. It is called vivekacha piti sukha, meaning joy and happiness that arises, the joy and happiness that is produced by being free from the nirvana hindrances. It is also called savitaka, savichara, as the noting mind is aimed and directed onto the object. Vitaka, initial application, is present. As the noting mind rubs against the object, sustained application, vichara, is also present. And the mind is free from kama chanda, sensual desire, and there will be minor form of piti, joy. In this way, by noting the object with aim and effort, the mind rubbing against the object, these jhanic factors arise. So these jhanic factors arise in this Vipassana practice, and it is Vipassana jhana. It is not the Samatha jhana, tranquility jhana, as in the practice of observing paññatti concept. But Vipassana jhana arises by noting the nama rupa. When Sayadaw explains how Viriya, Sati and Samadhi, mindfulness, concentration, effort, mindfulness and concentration develop, and how Vitakka, Vichara, initial application, sustained application arise from both theory and practice, yogi should listen attentively. So when the Dhamma is explained, there should be sadhuka savana. One should listen attentively, respectfully. When there is time for Dhamma talk, yogis should listen to the Dhamma talk without fail, attentively, respectfully, meticulously. And also when going for interview with the meditation teacher, yogi should listen attentively, respectfully to the guidance and instruction. There should be sadhuka savana, listening attentively and respectfully. When noting the object, yogi should note the object, aiming and directing the mind onto the object with effort. There should be sadhuka manasikara, practicing according to the guidance and instruction, noting the object with aim and effort. And yogis should be noting rising and falling of the abdomen, the primary object, as well as other objects that arise at the present moment. And yogis should listen the guidance and instruction attentively and practice according to this guidance and instruction. When coming for interview with the meditation teacher, it is very important that the yogi should describe accurately about his or her practice. Yogi who practices respectfully, meticulously, thoroughly will be able to report accurately about his or her practice. There are three things to report: arising of the object, how the yogi noted it, and what the yogi comes to know. So there are three things: arising of the object, noting the object, and what the yogi comes to discern. The nama rupa arise in their own accord. So the duty of the yogi is to note the object with aim and effort, follow the object very closely, aiming, directing the mind onto the object. When noting rising of the abdomen, yogi should follow the rising of the abdomen, noting it with aim and effort. And during walking meditation, whenever yogi lifts the foot, lifting should be followed closely, noting lifting with aim and effort, and moving, placing of the foot also has to be noted, following it very closely, lifting, moving, placing, noting it with aim and effort. And when the intention to turn arises, one should note the intention to turn, following it closely, noting with aim and effort, and when turning, yogi should note carefully, following it very closely, noting with aim and effort. So in this way, whatever object arises, yogi should follow very closely. There should not be any gap in between. Yogi should follow closely, noting with aim and effort. As soon as the object arises, yogi should notice with effort, aiming, directing the mind onto it. And yogi should explain what he, she comes to know. By noting the object, yogi should explain to the meditation teacher. So in this way, whatever object that arises, yogi should follow closely, noting with aim and effort. In the interview, yogi should first report about the primary object, rising and falling of the abdomen in the sitting, lifting, moving and placing in the walking. So in this way, yogi should describe what the yogi comes to know by noting rising, falling in the sitting, lifting, moving, placing in the walking meditation. Yogis are instructed to follow closely the object that arises and to note with aim and effort. And yogis, it is the work of the yogi to follow closely the object, noting it with aim and effort. And yogi should also explain the quality of his or her practice. The quality of his or her practice should be reported, whether yogi can note the object thoroughly, meticulously, whether yogi can note continuously, whether yogi can note respectfully, and whether yogi can note effectively. Yogi should explain whether he, she can note firmly, continuously, just like a stream of current. And if the yogi is able to note the object thoroughly, meticulously, continuously, yogi should explain what he, she comes to know. When noting rising of the abdomen, if the yogi is able to note rising of the abdomen thoroughly, meticulously, yogi should explain what he, she comes to know. Is it the form or shape of the abdomen? Is it the mode or manner of movement? Or is it the nature, such as stiffness, tension, warmth? So in this way, yogi has the duty of explaining to the teacher what he, she comes to know by noting the object. If the yogi is not able to note the rising, falling, what happens? Is it that the mind is wandering? Or is it that there were unpleasant sensations in the body, such as pain or ache or prickling or itching? In this way, yogi should explain what happens if he, she cannot note rising, falling. In this way, yogi should explain accurately about his or her practice. Reporting accurately about his or her practice is a way of helping the meditation teacher. By reporting accurately to the meditation teacher, yogi is helping the meditation teacher, and thus the meditation teacher can give necessary help to the yogi by giving instruction what the yogi or how the yogi should practice. Whatever new object arises, yogi should note it. The example is given here. The object of meditation are just like the food in the meal. When taking food, if the person does not chew the food, but swallow it without chewing, then the food will get blocked or the food will clog in the throat. So the person should chew properly before swallowing. In the practice, whatever object that arises, yogi should note it properly. If the yogi is noting in a superficial way, noting in an easygoing manner, then yogi will become undigested with the practice, just as a person who does not chew the food properly gets indigestion. In the same way, yogi cannot digest the practice if she is practicing in a superficial way. In eating, one should chew properly so that one knows the flavor of the food. In the same way, yogi should practice properly so that yogi will know the flavor, the taste of the Dhamma. And Theraji will continue to play tomorrow. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.